I am joined by society's leading change maker, Tanner Bergsma's here. How are you, Tanner?
Not doing too bad, Elizabeth. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you so much for asking, and thank you for being here. I am so inspired by your story. You are doing so much for the world right now to bring people together out of a place of love and healing. And so you have an important story to share. You are the founder of Hearts Healing Humanity, as well as being an autistic human rights advocate. You are working to combat homelessness, mental health awareness, and working on community inclusivity. In addition to being an author, like, do you sleep?
Hello. Let me see. Yeah, I do. Surprisingly,
When
amongst
you
all
find some
that.
time.
Yeah.
How did you move into this space where you are right now to become a leading change maker in the world?
I never used to be the way I am. I wouldn't say I used to be self-centered, but a lot less focused on community as a growing up. Um, and I used to, when I ran away from home and when I became homeless for a good extended period of time, on and off for almost 2 to 3 years, I then, with what I've experienced and witnessed, the amount of injustice, the amount of um, deaths that I've seen, the system is broken. And it's been broken for decades. And when I've been on the other end of that and see other people on the other end of that, it changes your perspective on things. It changes many different, you know, many different things. And so what you become to realize is that at being homeless, what happens is you realize that there's two sides to the spectrum, right? You have people that are, growing more richer and richer, and then you have people that are, on the other end of things that are struggling, getting more poor and poorer and poorer. And capitalism worked only for a shorter period of time back in, 1200s, 1300s. But as society progresses and more freedom of speech and stuff comes, we are seeing an increased need in inclusivity, unity, and we don't have that. And it's causing our world to destroy it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I came about it.
It's incredible that you are willing to be vulnerable and share that. And I commend you because it's not an easy space to get up and share that with the world. Uh, but I can say that I agree. It's something right now that we need more than ever is one, the awareness, and two, more people to share that story because then more people recognize that they're not alone and we can come together and all be successful and all get the things that we need. I think the world, and I know we said this before the show, but there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of judgment, there's a lot of separation right now in the world. And this is the time more than ever that we come together, we pivot, and we start leading the way to a better future for so many people. And that's what you're doing through Hearts Healing Humanity. Can you tell us a little bit about the organization?
Sure. So, Hearts Healing Humanity is a federally Canadian registered charity that helps relieve poverty off of Canadians by helping them achieve long term stability through housing initiatives, as well as food and programs that help individuals get to the root of homelessness. Homelessness doesn't just start. You take a look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the basics to everything, is shelter, food, water, and those things. And so our organization, I firmly believe that housing is a human right. Affordable housing is a human right. Everyone deserves that ability and that equal chance at life. And our organization has resources that have been pulled from years of data and real life experiences that has helped me shape the programs that we have. The Changemakers Education Program teaches individuals the key aspects of life that they need to survive, you know, from healthy coping mechanisms to basic to even I'm trying to think of the right word here. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
To basic necessities of to basic life skills. That's what I was searching for. Found it. To basic life skills, and we teach individuals how to be able to be change makers within society. So once we get them housed and stuff like that, we provide a hand up. We don't provide a handout, and there's a difference. So some people, and in their experience with our charity, some people want to have a whole bunch of free things and want to have everything done for them, but they don't want to put in the work. We don't help people that cannot help themselves or don't want to. They can if they want to, they just don't want to. You know, we have, we don't turn anyone away, but we put our focus into Canadian citizens, mainly prioritizing the essential foundations that have built this country to where it is today. However, we don't turn anyone away. We have referrals and partnerships in place. And if we have an international student struggling for housing, for example, we do have a separate partnership with another charity that helps with that. Our entire goal is to not see anyone struggle. And that's the most critical aspect of all of this, is we help individuals achieve that long-term success.
I'm curious. So this is a big debate, right? Like, at least here in the States, regarding welfare and systems in place to have what more of that handout, right? And you're saying no, there's a difference. How does the organization make the determination between a person who maybe doesn't want to do that work versus the one who's like, I just need some help right now to get me back on my feet and point me in the right direction?
The biggest thing is that when we get involved with the client, we will do the centralized intake and stuff, and we will help find a place that's suitable to their needs, that's accommodating and stuff like that. Sometimes they are on the 11th hour. I had to house a client under 10 hours, and I did it. Whoa. So yeah, like I have an entire method of system that has proven to work. We've housed over 37 people and counting, and we work really digitally. One of the things that we can that helps us understand, unless if we provide a lease, right, and they don't want to take that lease because of a reason other than medical or mental health reasons, which our psychologists and social workers are able to help determine, you know, after a second lease, if they refuse that, we have to discharge them. The biggest thing is that if you're truly trying to get back on your feet, you know, you do what you can. You know, if it's in reason, if it's too far from your work that you can't get there, if it's going to impact your basic functioning of life, then, you know, you find something else. We don't, you know, but if it's something like, oh, it's it's like not big enough, and it's like a place that is for market size or for market rent, it's pretty doable, you know, and that does not, and that's the only thing that's bothering them. Oh, it's too small. It's this, it's that, you know, and they want something bigger, something cheaper, then we know that it's an entirely different story because they're expecting a handout. At that point in time, when we see people not showing up to meetings, when we see people or clients not putting in the work, and even like most of our clients who want to hand up, they help search for the housing along with our committee, and that's the main difference. And that's how you can tell, as somebody that used to be homeless, I used to search 12 hours, 14 hours. I would not even sleep some days until I found some things. I was not here by choice. I am not here to put any blame. I had to do what I had to do to take charge of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what this charity does. We are a charity for the people. We are a people's charity. The difference is that when one person comes in and wanting to help make the programs better, stuff like that, I'm the executive director and founder, but I'm on the front lines. I'm equally putting in that amount of work,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I think that people today need. We take a look at another organizations. Some board members don't even have any experience themselves in situations that they're trying to advocate for.
Yeah.
And it's just about money and things like that. I have many examples I can give you. And I can tell you that, we are it's not just people. It's also the system. I had a client, and I won't say names and I won't say who, but they were living in a woman's shelter. And at 3 months, they were trying to already kick her out, and we were still trying to find her a place to live. And I had to go all the way up to the board of directors and tell them that they needed to have her stay because she was actually trying to put in the work. She had a grandson, and it's things like that when you start seeing things and clients getting turned away because of their gender, because of who they either identify as or who they or how they believe. Like, it shouldn't matter about any of that, and yet we're so caught up on it. And that, at the end of the day, it's not just about deciphering whether they want to hand up or hand out. It's a system itself and how we choose to navigate it. And more importantly, when we take on a client, we're going to do everything that we can to advocate for them, and whatever the heck means that is.
Yeah.
And usually, where there's a will, there's a way. So as long as the client has demonstrated to us and is working with us, that is how we can tell. If a client is being difficult, being disrespectful to our staff, which it's actually, we are all run volunteers. I don't get paid for what I do. In fact, I'm working, 12, 14 hours a day sometimes on the charity. I don't get paid. The money goes back into the people. I put a lot of money into this thing, but I believe that the world needs change. So I hope that answers your question. I know I kind of rambled on a little bit, but
No,
it's just a topic you can't avoid. You can't sit here and deny the reality that, we had a client recently that committed suicide because they did not get the help that they needed. We intervened as best as we could, but it wasn't us. It was the system itself where they were staying and they were harassing them.
Oof.
Landlords are taking advantage of the situation. And don't get me wrong, I have many individuals that I'm connected with, and the charity works with both landlords and tenants to make sure that we are mediating in the best possible way. But the system is broken. And that's what people need to understand, is that the sooner that we stop fighting against each other and blaming Trudeau because it was broken long before him, the sooner that we start implementing and start taking action and unifying each other with each other, we're going to see change. And until that happens, I am going to be very surprised if our human race makes it past another 100 years, just where things are going.
Yep. It's pretty
That's
dire.
what people don't understand.
No, like, we're in a pretty dire situation at this point. And I agree with you again. Like, everybody needs to just sit down at the table. Let's start asking different questions to get to the root cause, but come at it from a place of open-mindedness and understanding, and not one side versus the other, right? Like, it's not a you versus me, it's a we. And the only way that we can continue to move forward is by understanding the situation, by taking out that judgment, by having that fear. And unfortunately, it is within us. I believe that every person on this planet, regardless of gender, sexual orientation, religion, name the buckets, right? If you're alive on this planet right now, every single person deserves respect. And we don't have that right now. And
we are in a situation where you take a look at what's going on. We, as a child, if you study Brentford Brenner's ecological theory of learning, you get to understand that the central ring, we are influenced by our family, our friends, the people closest to us, and they are influenced by the people around them. You take a look at the institutions, you take a look at the stores, you take a look at things like that, and then they're influenced by government, politicians, news, and they're influenced by beliefs, culture that's been passed down from generation after generation after generation, and not everything is correct.
mm-hmm.
We can't argue what is correct and what's not correct. We can only go what's based on principle.
Mm-hmm.
You take a look at, I came across this Facebook post just recently, or a video, where one person was arguing over whether or not, they were like, how do you define a woman versus a man? And you know what? Biological science shows one thing, but who are we to say that? What does it matter? What does it, excuse my
It's
language,
totally okay.
What does it fucking matter of what that is?
Yeah.
They are human beings. Under the Canadian Charter, under Article 3 of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, in Article 7 of the Canadian Charter, we have the foundational liberty of right to liberty, life, and security of person. Everyone deserves to have Section 2B of the Canadian Charter, to have that freedom of expression, to be able to express themselves for who they are. We don't need to necessarily question who they are and degrade them as a human being. But yet, we see, I had 2 clients now that are experiencing discrimination because of their age. And I am seeing people getting kicked out. I'm seeing people literally trying to commit suicide because they don't have the proper resources that they need. People are not standing up and realizing what is going on. And that is the problem. It's the system is broken because we choose to be having it broken. It's not the government's fault. We are, as people, as generations, as people that could be possible leaders, we choose not to do something about it, or otherwise we wouldn't be in this state.
Yeah.
We can't blame people.
No, we have to stand up. And it's important for people to understand, because it's very easy to sit and go, well, I'm just one person. There's nothing I can do. I cannot change the system. But what people don't realize is it only takes one to start. And there's a video, it makes me think about this video that I've seen, and it's a man dancing alone on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And then one person turns into 2, and everybody's sort of watching them like, you guys are crazy, you're dancing on the beach. But then sooner than later, number 3 shows up, and then before you know it, there's a whole crowd of people dancing on the beach because one person started it. So
and that's
what we
and
need.
that's what I hope. Well, exactly. And that's what I hope to see with what I'm trying to do. You see, this is the thing, is that I may hold a title, but titles don't matter. Things don't matter. I'm just somebody trying to make an impact. I've had previous people on the board say, oh, yes, boss, yes. And I'm like, no, you are to treat me as your equal, and I am to treat you as my equal. We are just here starting I wouldn't say a revolution, but we're here trying to create a new renaissance, a new beginning of change, and not from a point of view where we need to start riots or stuff like that, because that's not what I'm trying to do. But I am trying to say that maybe instead of pointing the finger at people, we need to look at ourselves and take a look. If we want to see the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do. And that's what I'm trying to achieve. That's what the charity's goal is. That's all I'm trying to do.
I love it. I want to go back for a minute and feel free to share as little or as much as you choose. From your own journey, you mentioned you were homeless yourself. At what age did that happen, and how long? And are those, whatever you want, if you don't want to share, that's okay. We don't have to talk about it, but
so around 17 turning 18, and practically I was on and off homeless until September of 2023.
wow.
This organization, I started up with no money, and it was just, I wanted to do something. So that same month that I became housed and stable, I started this entire thing up.
That's amazing. What do you remember the point where you were sitting wherever you were and you went, this isn't right. I'm not going to let the world do this anymore. And this is how I'm going to go about it. Like, was there a pivotal moment for you?
My daughter passed away 2 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember trying to numb myself through drinking. I attempted suicide 19 times. Didn't work. I'm glad it didn't. But I remember I always used to ask God, why do you let bad things happen to good people? And I remember walking one day, and this is a true story. I walk along, and I think I see something. I look down because I think it's like a shiny coin or something. And there's one set of footprints. Okay. Do you know the footprints in the sand poem?
I do. I love it.
I'm going to repeat it for those that don't know.
Yes.
Because sometimes people, and don't worry, it's not about religion, because it doesn't matter about what you believe in. But it made me think about this. So the poem goes, one night a man had a dream. He dreamed he was walking alone He was walking along the beach with the Lord. Across the sky flashed scenes from his life. From each scene, he noticed two sets of footprints in the sand, one belonging to him and the other to the Lord. When the last scene of his life flashed before him, he looked back at his footprints in the sand. He noticed that many times along the path of his life, there was only one set of footprints. He also noticed that it happened at the very lowest and saddest times in his life. This really bothered him, and he questioned the Lord about it. And this was the same question that I always used to ask. He said, Lord, you said that once I decided to follow you, you'd walk with me all the way. But I have noticed that during the most troublesome times in my life, there was only one set of footprints. I don't understand why, when I needed you most, you would leave me. And I asked that all the time. Why do bad things happen to good people? Why, if there was a God, why would bad things happen to good people? And so the Lord replied, my son, my precious child, I love you, and I would never leave you. During your times of trial and suffering, when you only see one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you. And that is a poem by Mary Stevenson. So that is literally, and I can show you to this day where that is. And that to me was one of two moving points to my life. that was my journey of like, this is messed up. Then my daughter passed away, things happened. And I remember just sitting there and I was ready to end my life, right? I had a plan, everything. April of 2023, April 3rd. Okay. And I was saying my goodbyes on Messenger and ready to shut off my phone. And as I go through and ready to delete my social media account, I received a message from two girls. I don't know who they are or what they are, but they ask, do I want to go to church? And they pointed out a church. I was in Kitchener. I'm like, are these scammers? But then they're like, I'm like, you know what, God, if you have anything in store for me, I might as well go. I thought I was being asked out by two girls at a church. I was like, sweet, double deal. Now I've come to grow and do a lot of work on myself since then, so I don't think like that anymore. But as I went, the entire church was just between my cohort of between 18 and 30. And the problem is that I just didn't feel welcome in the past, but there was something different. It was like, I need to be here at a certain period of time. Right. And so that's what helped me get back on my feet overall. And going back and looking at, you're asking about the turning point in my life, saying that this is messed up, that something needs to change, it was that. And then I started getting a little bit more actively involved in building myself up. And once I built myself up, I was like, I need to do something, because now that I'm at a point where I can be stable, I looked back and I was like, I'm not going to let anything happen to the people that might not be as strong as me. Because I'm the type of person, you throw a stake at my heart, I will just keep walking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the type of person that will take a bullet if it means making sure that the world gets healed. And I would, in a heartbeat. I wouldn't even hesitate. And that's the thing, is that, as we take a look at the way that our society is, my turning point, I had several turning points, but my final one was just like, I've seen people end their life. I've seen people getting stabbed. I've seen people getting like all these things that traumatize a person. And I see other people going through those same things. And I see the system as I approach and start to get more developed into the business world side of things, as I am an entrepreneur. I start to see an entirely different world of like how people think, how people view other people. And I'm like, that needs to change. But the change cannot start with me trying to do petitions. I used to be an environmental activist, and I still am. But I used to send petitions to the federal government. And yes, I got some changes made, smaller ones, of course, but I didn't realize that the change had to start with me. And once I realized the value of my life, that is when I could start helping other people. That is why I can look up and have a straight face and say, you know what? I can take charge of my life. The only person that I know that can count on is me. And in doing so, I open up an entire door to allow other people to follow me. And all I'm doing is just being me. I am choosing to lead by example. If you want to make the world a better place, got to take a look at yourself. And I did not understand those words. And until just very, pretty recently. So it's a growing process, but yeah, I mean, it people need to understand and realize that we need to take a look at ourselves. If we want unity, we want peace, we want these things, we got to take a look at ourselves. We got to be able to discover what in society, do we hate the most, and take a look at it within and realize that we probably do the same things.
Yeah.
Because it's a way of deflection.
Absolutely.
And so once we realize that and change that and start leading by example, that is how change happens. We don't expect people in government to change. It's the system.
Yeah.
But we can take charge of the system. We can create opportunity. We can create doors. We can move doors. And that's what I've done. Right?
I love it. I think it's so important the change happens within you. And because it's really easy to, again, to sit back and look at someone who's gone through the things that you have and say, yeah, but look at him now. Right. But he did that. You did that, right? You made that choice. You decided, I'm going to take control. And it doesn't have to be figured out overnight. And I think this is another key to the process, because having been in similar positions myself, there was this anxiety within me because I couldn't figure it out overnight. And I wanted to for my family. I wanted to for myself, which was extremely overwhelming. And it wasn't until I got to a place where I could say, all right, I just need the next step. What do I need to do next? And then one step at a time. It doesn't have to be overnight. We can take that overwhelm out of it if we just let ourselves go inward and figure out what is the one next right step. But rest assured that power is within you. And the more that we look at us and recognize that we're in control of creating the peace, because we show up in action, our energy, our authenticity, we are here. Like if we're showing up like that and more people are showing up in their authentic self and living and from a place of love and peace, again, one crazy person on a beach, right? Like dancing starts a movement. So like if you're showing up from this place and I am, and more businesses are going to a heart-centered approach, and one by one, little by little, we create this massive change and shift the entire planet to a place of love. And there's so much power there.
Exactly. And the power, there's never a good enough time to change than the present.
Absolutely. I want to shift a minute.
Sure.
Because you wrote a book, The Bridge Between Light and Darkness. First of all, I absolutely love the title, because everything's energy, right? We have the equal and opposite. And just like you said, that judgment, that fear, that darkness that we see in the world, go within and look within yourself, because everything's a mirror. We can heal within ourselves. So I absolutely love the title. Tell us about the book, and what inspired you to write it.
So I actually wrote this book when I actually was homeless.
Oh my gosh.
For almost 3 years.
Wow.
Let me ask you this. When you take a look at this book, right? You probably can't see it.
It's right. I can bring it up. I can pull the cover up real quick. Hang on.
I can actually share my screen.
Sure.
So you take a look at this.
This is the first screen share of the Power to Pivot podcast, Tanner. Just so you know. Look at technology working, everybody. I love it.
I know. So you take a look at this. Okay. Is a person walking towards or from the light?
I see him looking towards the light.
Is he walking towards or behind? Walking towards or away?
I mean, hang on. I can't make it bigger. Can you make it bigger? I see him facing, well, I guess the light is all around him. I don't know. Do we need to take a survey?
It's interesting how you view about it. I had design this book because I wanted to purposefully, I get mixed answers all the time. This book It's available globally. In this book, it tells me a lot about what kind of quality of a person that you are. You know, when you're saying that you see light around you, that's how you look and perceive life. That's how you choose to think. I've had people tell me, you know, that he's walking away. And every single time as I delve deeper, you know, I understand that, you know, one person wanted to be a pilot, but they couldn't be a pilot because, you know, of he wasn't good at math. And I showed him this book and asked, is he walking toward or away? And he said he was walking away. I said, you're walking away from yourself. Shows a lot about how people perceive it. This book is all about choice. It shows people that, you know, it gives multiple generational perspective. So this book, it talks about, you know, trauma. It talks about intergenerational trauma, you know, starting back from a World War II veteran, you know, he got heavily into the drinking and stuff like that because of post-traumatic, and he didn't deal with things properly. Some consequences happened, and you see how those effects happened, how those affected the two grandchildren, and one is a sister and one is a brother. And you see the sister goes off and be successful, but the brother, but she doesn't deal with her stuff, you know. And you see this, you know, the brother, he's homeless, but he starts to deal with this stuff, you know. And it's based on true stories from my either personal life or other people that have been around. It's quite an emotional book because I made it to be that way. But you see at the end, there's a common thing that people like, she loses it all, but she can come back in the center. And once you start dealing with your stuff, then, you know, and at the end of the book, the one key thing that I always tell people when they read this, follow your heart, but make your choices wisely. There will always be a bridge between light and darkness. It is up to you which path you take.
Oof.
Think about that.
That's powerful. It's so true.
The book itself serves as a meaningful reminder that we are and have choices in life, whether we walk away. You know, one of the questions that I ask people all the time, and I'll ask you this: what do you think a living legacy? What do you think a legacy? What does the word legacy mean to you?
Ooh, that's a very good question. Um, Honestly, I think a legacy for me is people remembering the energy, the feeling that I, not what I did, but how I showed up. I think for me, it's about living in that authentic place where I can show up and be me, right? And that to me is a legacy.
I want you to take a moment and realize and look at something. Okay. You see, I think differently. I look at life like there's something called there's a legacy, but then there's something called a living legacy. And here's the power of this. Every single choice, every single thought that you think and do, you're creating a legacy, whether that be a good one or a bad one. People think, oh, you know, I had somebody that one of my family members used to always say to me all the time, the legacies within my children, which I fully understand. However, they're missing an entire concept because people are not going to care or remember you when you're dead 10 feet under, 6 feet under the ground with a concrete slab over you. You go back 3 or 4 generations, it's going to be erased. People are not going to remember you about what you did because by then it's too late. The power of the change is in the present. Every single choice that we choose to think creates a legacy, whether that be a good legacy or a bad legacy. And when I talk about my book, we are always on that bridge between light and darkness. We always have those choices in life to decide. How do we choose to walk? How do we choose to look at life? There's a good saying that I like. I'm a person with many sayings.
I love it.
Along the lines, your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny. It's a perfect example. And when I talked to you about Maslow's, about Brenford Brenner's ecological theory of learning, our beliefs get shaped by our culture of the previous generations, which can be intergenerational beliefs. That is why we are in this situation today, because we got caught so much into what we think is right or wrong based off of what society tells us. But the only person that can really define that is God. I don't even, I may believe in God, but you know what? Maybe who's to say that I'm right or wrong? It's certainly not to be forced down upon somebody.
Oh, 100%.
And, what we believe and what our parents believed becomes our thoughts, and that becomes our destiny. And that's why we are in the state that's in. It's up for us to rewrite these beliefs. And these belief systems come from this simple thing of what way are we walking along that bridge. So this book contains about 3 years worth of stuff. I worked on it for about 3 years, 2 to 3 years. And I wrote it during some of my lowest moments of my life. I wrote it during some of my most suicidal times of my life. And I wrote it during my life lesson moments of my life. My new book talks a lot about my journey, and we will discuss that later.
Woohoo! Can't wait. So everybody's just gonna have to stay tuned. more good to come. Tanner, as we start to wrap up, where can people find you?
People can find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. My handle is all the same, at Tanner Bergsma. On Facebook, I have 17,000 followers. Instagram, 13.2K or 13.1K. They're in there, but I'm with the blue verified check mark on there. But all my social media handles just at first name, last name, Tanner Bergsma. That's it. That's how people can find me. You can also find me on my website. I have a new website coming out, so stay tuned to that because that's going to be posted somewhere in my socials. And if you want to be able to reach out to me, go through my website, go through my Instagram handles, and that's how you can really get a hold of me if you want to be able to learn more about how to be able to, make change and stuff like that. We need more people to create change.
Absolutely.
But the one thing I will say is that I won't be interested in people that are just wanting to use the system to benefit from themselves. I don't believe that people should be profiting off other people, especially with their basic needs. And so as a person, when we're wrapping things up, that is what I'm going to say. At the end of the day, it's how we choose to think and act. You're always going to be on that bridge. Which side do you choose to take?
Oof. Love it. Tanner, thank you so much for your bravery, your courage, your vulnerability, for being willing to come on to share your story, and for all the work that you're doing literally to make the world a better place. It's so much appreciated. We'll make sure that all of the links are in the show notes so that people can reach out. And everyone, please make sure that you reach out to Tanner. Check out Hearts Healing Humanity. We'll, again, make sure everything's in the show notes. We're going to wrap up the way we do every episode. You are never stuck. You are never lost. You are never, ever alone. At any given moment, you have use your power to pivot, make a new choice, and start again.